It's cool to be in California, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of emotions going on because I'm getting married in 3 or 4 weeks. A couple of you in the wedding. I see a lot of new faces, and this is always like such a big reunion. Every time I see Bruce, I want to jive with Bruce. And I want to start off by just saying that I think vector trained is just this very, how do I say this? When I think of vector trained, I think more than just the message last year. I think of something that's getting a lot of traction for our company and something we can really beat our chest proudly about and say, hey, we're vector trained. And I think it's important to remember that vector trained doesn't come respectfully from the RMs or from Al or from Bruce. It comes from the field, right? We make vector trained, we make it great, we make it okay, we make it subpar, we make it not so good, we make it amazing. And I think the more ownership that we take into vector trained, I think that's going to be a big thing. So I'm excited for SLC. I'm excited to be here again with all of you. And I have to admit, I just got into golf. And it's really rough. It's really rough. And I have a couple of lessons I've been taking from golf. I wanted to do this real quick. So here's what I found in taking up golf, and I want to thank Ben Jackson and the whole crew for getting me into it. Number one, it's really hard. Like, it looks easier. So I think, a lot of DVM parallels. It just looks a lot easier, right? If I run a really good office, I can just step in, and being a division manager is no problem. Not always the case. I think of Old Faithful. If you're in any golfers here, when Tiger goes back to the Old Faithful putter, the Scotty Cam 2, lo and behold, it works. And I think for us, as fancy as we get, you go back to recruiting. I think that's really what I get from this. I also take from golf, get a pro. Take lessons. So here at SLC, who can you approach and who can be your pro to help you get better with your swing and your game. I also think as hard and as difficult as it is, the more you get into golf and the more as frustrating as the first part is, on the other side is this really unbelievable experience. And I think of an executive plus pay, a lifestyle, a flexibility, and just the ability to impact that I think I didn't always appreciate that. And in fact, Mike, you're referencing Waldron's wedding. I didn't appreciate being a division manager. I'm 40 years old. This is my 19th SLC, and I'm more convicted about being a division manager more than ever because the more layers I peel back, the more exciting it gets. And I hope that I can share that enthusiasm with you. So my message is about divisional culture, and there are rhythms for everything. There's rhythm in life. There are rhythms in music. There are rhythms in sports, and what I wanted to do is try and peel back the layers of the rhythms of our division, and I think there's a lot of things that you guys can take from what I'm going to share. And so I want to start off by also saying that I found that by going through the last few messages, I found some really interesting things about our divisional culture. I'm going to go quickly through this. So this was in 2015. My message was leadership in the pilot. This was the cover slide, right? So 2015, my message was, how do you get the pilot rocking? Then in 2016, right, it was that breakout, and we talked about divisional strategies for deployment, and I shared, I did a live opening comment. Some of you remember that, the vets? I did a live opening comments from my TLA. And then from there, last year, we did kind of that 2.0 version and how we took that to the field. And so when I think of the progression of our Florida United, which is our two divisions together, I wanted to break it down pretty quickly, and I think there's some power in the order of this. And I see Rich in the back, and I want to thank Rich. This order doesn't make sense, and I was also speaking to Trey. You've got to start with the pilot. This is where this whole thing happens. I have a lot of questions at SLC. Hey, tell me about the division. What's changed? And I have to be honest, not a lot has changed. In fact, a lot of it's kind of the same. And year after year, we've just been building and building and building. And some of the faces are just getting older and older and older, and the programs are just getting a little bit more advanced. But at the end of the day, it's the same recipe. And so start with the pilot. Get the pilot going first. Get development from the pilot, and I'll reference Andrew and Luke and all the great guys and girls that are coming out of the pilot. Then scale that program that you got from the pilot out to your division, and then wrap things up with, then you evolve what you have. And when I first moved down and got a chance to work with Kathy, I did it backwards. I wanted to start here. And I forgot the key elements that, we're the bridge. I think Bruce, you said that at a meeting, if you remember. We're the bridge. We're the bridge. So I also think that Vector's really good at giving parts of the recipe and not the whole thing. I think we're really good and really bad at the same time. And I know I'm guilty. So Ryan Casey will come up and talk about this wonderful training. I don't know how long ago that was, Ryan. And you know, if Betty Crocker says bake this cake and you put this much salt and this type of dough and this type of egg, Vector people are really good at, you know what, I'm just going to work on just the salt for now. And I'm just going to take that salt. I'm not going to bake the cake. I'm going to get really good at the salt. And I think I've been guilty of taking parts of programs and just little bits here, and I like that one talk there. And what I want to try and do, if I can do a good enough job for you today, is try to put the whole thing together so you can bake the same cake in the same pie. And it's not going to be the same for all of you. It's not a perfect template, but I do think it's a great framework. I do think if you can take, you know, the dough and the egg and the salt appropriately, I do think there's some magic that comes out of what I'm going to show you today. And it's a culmination, again, of the rhythms of multiple messages. And I'm excited to share that with you today. I also asked, like Albert said, that you kind of view this with a different look, right? Try not to find the hot new program. In fact, I would say for us to take it higher, it's not about finding the new startup. It's about the mastery class. You know, how do we get really good at what we already know how to do? And so that's what I want to share with you today, just to preface. And I think this was, maybe this was Lancelot, where you'll see the same thing, and there's different groups in the room that'll say, wow, that's an amazing idea that's been shared every SLC. Or maybe it's, oh yeah, I remember he talked about that, but I haven't done that yet. And then for some of you, it's, oh nice, you know, I got that. We're doing it right now. So wherever you're at, I hope we can give you some tools. I hope you can walk away. I hope we can create some conversation. And whether you're new or you're old, let's make some great recipes here. And I'm going to bring a lot of greatest hits back from the last 3 messages. And hopefully things you'll view it in a different way. And I want to break it down like this. So when I think of the rhythms of the Florida United culture, and you know, there are a lot of things that I still need to improve upon as a division manager, but I'm really good at culture, man. I love culture, and I love creating culture from scratch. And I feel like we've got this system where you don't have to have this certain personality to just get things going. Okay? And I want to share with you, and I got a lot of feedback. I didn't have time to put it together. I asked all of the returning Leadership Academy members, I asked all of the district managers, all the CSPs, and I polled them on WhatsApp. And the results were so overwhelmingly similar. Like, it was pretty, I was pretty shocked. It's pretty clear where the culture of our division comes from. It comes from our mental playbook. Last year or 2 years ago, Dan talked about indoctrinating people how to think, Dan Casetta. And I think a big part of our divisional culture comes from our strategies in helping create a mental playbook. Everyone speaks the same language. I want to talk about that today. Relationships, where we're spending our time and who we're speaking to. You know, my proudest moment is when Andrew Evans tomorrow gets up on stage and he rocks the company at SLC. As a kid who I had to fight to get to show up to my office on time more than 3 days in a row as an assistant. The Andrew you know is not the Andrew I knew, just for sure. Communication, pilot power, and of course personal and professional growth. So I want to start with the mental playbook. So a lot of goodies here. And I ask that if you've seen a lot of these, I'm going to ask that you put kind of some notes together and say, you know, what can I put together? What can I implement this year? So number one, I think our mental playbook comes from a few things. A clear vision of who we are and what we're about. Our values and being aligned in values with the team. Circle of influence, of course, vector trained. And then who we are and what we're about. So this is my vision board. It's not quite updated, but this is a board I put together, and what it represents are my 6 core values, and some of you have seen this before. It also represents a little bit of dreaming here and there, and just some scary stuff. Like, for example, before I got my BMW, I said, let me just put the BMW up there because I'm going to get it soon. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, the BMW put up is just a 1 year earlier model of the one I got. Like creepy things like that. Or where I put the vacation, you know, that's where we're going for a honeymoon. And so I think one thing that's really clear in our division from top down is who we are and who we're not. You know, I know my strengths, and for me, it's faith, it's family. You know, I've got a list of values. And what we have everyone in the organization do once they go into management is they take this exercise, and they're about 377 values, and what they'll do is they'll cross off half, cross off half, cross off half, until they get to the top 6. And everyone is really, strong in what those 6 are for each person. We share that, and for the most part, everyone knows everyone's core values. And so what we're able to do with that is we really know who we're working with, and people know who they're getting as a division manager. So we start with that as far as core values. Circle of influence, that's something that comes up every meeting, every call. People are aware of who they're speaking to, who they're venting to, who they're surrounding themselves with, who they're going on vacation with, who they're getting calls with, and who they're mentoring. I think that's been a big part of our organization's culture. Everyone talks about, in fact, I quote Bruce from I don't know how long ago, and it says, you will typically shift the CPO of the people you're speaking with. It says Bruce Goodman, one of my slides. I think, Kate, I was talking about that when I was still in DC Metro. And it's so funny, like there's trash talking at the end of the summer, and all the lower performing branches who haven't quit, they're coming back for round 2 to get better, and they're saying, oh yeah, we were totally talking together. Yeah, that was us down there, and just, culture like that. We take a lot of pride in, in Florida United, this is the United way, no pun intended, right? This is how Florida United shows up to meetings. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. We're from Florida United, and that means something. And so things like, a divisional logo, and just having pride in who we are, divisional swag gear with the hats and the fun stuff. And I know a lot of you have that, but it's just an easy way to create culture. The next man or next woman up mentality, knowing that at any given time, someone could be asked to step up into a new position. Everyone knows that if Andrew Evans messes up, someone else is going to Metro Miami, and people believe that. And people want to be on deck, ready with their skill sets. Self-awareness, one of the 3 things that we do for all of it. Everyone takes CVI, everyone takes 5 love languages, everyone reads Peter Drucker's Managing Oneself, and we're now expanding, I think thanks to Scott and his influence, to positive intelligence. And so there's a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-evaluation, a lot of sharing of the scores of people. So that way, if I'm talking to, let's say, Greg Cothran, and I know he's, let's say, a merchant builder, because I'm aware of that, because we've been delving in that so much, we really have a better understanding of how to work with each other. So that's across the board a big culture. In fact, it's really uncommon for someone to be in Florida United and within 6 months not know each other's CVI scores, love languages. We'll have people hug in the back, they're hugging. Like, what are you doing? They're like, well, it's his love language. I'm like, oh, I got it, right? So things like that. Situational leadership. This is taught from the first prep, and there's a lot of pride. Right now, this is the best time. My favorite time as a division manager is October, because we talk about what happens when you get to D2 phase. And if you're not familiar, situational leadership is the model. And in D2 phase, commitment drops when stress goes high. And so the big war cry in our division is that we own D2 phase. While everyone else quits, while everyone else drops, while everyone else regresses, Florida United, we push through D2 phase. That's a big part of our culture as well. When we indoctrinate people how to think, we keep talking about A players and how do you separate yourself? Is that the A player way? Do you show up on time? Are you going to be like everyone else? Or are you an A player a la entrepreneur roller coaster? Best version of yourself. And it's been pretty amazing to see just the results from standards, from how people have carried themselves on trips, to how they show up with assignments, to deadlines. It's just easy for me to say, hey, Was, best version of yourself. I get it, Jeff, my bad. And it really allows us to operate at a high level. And of course, my favorite culture is that, the days of I branch and it didn't go well and I quit are really over in our division. We haven't had that. People will go branch, and they'll come back to our next level program, which is our returning TLA program, and they'll know that during the fall, you'll put together what's called your EDGE training plan, meaning you're going to work hard in fall to train on all the things that you didn't really execute in the first year, and everyone knows that branching 2 times, in some cases 3 times, is the way to go, because that's really how you get the light bulb moment. And that light bulb moment is that you decide to do Cutco through college. This, my friends, for sure is the biggest theme in our division right now. This is the culture. This is what creates retention. This is creates excitement. This is what I think creates a lot of district manager deployment and branch manager deployment. How we have half of our branch class transitioning to the CSP team is because people know that Cutco's not a summer thing. It's a through college thing at least. And you've seen this before, but first time you go through TLA, you're in your spot your first summer, you branch the first time to build a business, then you'll come back and branch a second time so you can learn how to grow a business. Or you might decide that I really didn't enjoy my experience of running a business to manage people. I'd rather manage myself, so you learn how to run a CSP-type business. And then you either branch a third time like Andrew Evans, or you might pursue the district manager CSP opportunity, or you graduate and become what we call a 5-star recruit. Just like an athlete where all the schools are going after you, you become a college graduate, and all the med schools and law schools are after you. And of course, oldie but goodie, just what are the anchors you're promoting of your team? Every team meeting, every opening comments, every SLDM, every division meeting. These are things back in the day since, gosh, Kate can remember this. Every opening comments will start with, hey, welcome to the Florida United team, and I want to share the 4 anchors of how we operate. And have you establish those for your team? And more importantly, do you have vision for the future? The last few years have been really awesome, talking about 2018 and our epic growth, and in 2019, how Vector Marketing is going to use our divisional programs and scale it across the country for the betterment of the company. And then in 2020, we're going to be the hotbed for recruiting in Vector and for college graduates. And in 2021, we're going to be built to last. And in 2022, we're going to be the division to help spearhead Vector Marketing towards $1 billion in sales annually. And this is repeated, and people can finish the sentences, and people know this word for word, and people can memorize the slides. People have the pictures. And I think the more of these you can put into your program, these are the things that create your culture. And a new one, and this has been a hot move, so we unleashed Vector Trained, and at the last prep we said, hey, what are some TLA moments? What are some moments where your TLA training is coming out at school or in real life? So every Friday we have TLA Moment Fridays. And what I'll post, this is on our WhatsApp, post a light bulb, of course. I'll say, TLA moments. At our last prep, we spoke about moments at school and life where being Vector Trained shows. And I'm getting really good at the emojis, if you haven't noticed, right? Looking for TLA moments from the last few weeks, light bulbs, things you've learned in TLA that are shown up in your classes, or skill sets that you've learned or are learning that are being applied and are helping you excel in life, circle of influence moments. Remember to keep all commentary humble, positive, and best version of yourself. Fired up to see all of you experiencing growth this semester. The best is yet to come. Let's go. Post TLA moments now. And 125 posts on Friday within an hour. It was nasty. And so the posts were like this. Jeremy Williams goes to Georgia Tech, posted a model that we were already covering at TLA. This was in lecture at Georgia Tech, and she's talking about the big rocks, pebbles, and sand. Yeah, I'm Vector Trained. We learned that at COC from Mike Abramowitz. Walking into speech class where everyone's freaking out about it and crushing my 10-minute presentation after practicing giving talks in the office. And at the event, he says, go branch, Vector Trained. All my engineering professors expressed the importance of having technical knowledge, but also being able to communicate effectively, work with a team, be professionals in order to be big-time firms to recruit you, et cetera, et cetera. TLA moments, United Trained, 2009. And this one's as a get it. I don't even know what that means. It's a rap reference. Okay. And it just goes on and on and on. And so I wanted to give you kind of the Cliff Notes version of when you come to a United meeting, you speak to someone from Florida United, you interact, that's the vibrato, that's the rhythm you'll feel of what happens at Florida United. So right now, take 30 seconds. If you could define 3, 4, 5 things that you'd want to have in the culture of your division, what are some themes? What are some things that would be exciting for you to have already woven in, speaking for themselves? Catch those right now. Second thing, second rhythm I want to talk about are relationships. For me, I would say this has probably been one of the most powerful ones, because the first one we've had probably for almost 2 decades. But this one is where I've made moves and efforts as a division manager, and I can really see the fruits of my labor, if you will, for the last 3 years. And so a couple key programs, some oldie but goodies, is the big three targeting. And I always reference my visit to Mike out in Chicago, beautiful Evanston, Illinois, right by Northwestern University. And the big thing I took from my visit with Mike, and he was so gracious with his time, he said, yeah, I just pick 2 or 3 people and wrap my arms around them. I really make sure I get a lot of communication. I said, I can do that. So I picked 3 people I really liked. And this is really cool. I went through the last 3 years of slides. So the first time I presented this to you guys 3 years ago, a guy named Andrew Evans, Luke Maseko, and this is Grace Velez. They're all still active in the business. And that year, after spending I had weekly calls or biweekly calls, monthly meetings, multiple field visits with these 3 individuals, definitely excess time compared to everyone else. We had the number 1 branch, number 1 Silver Cup branch that year, number 2 branch that year, and new deem at 320. And so my efforts yielded $900K in CPO just from those 3 candidates. So the next year I picked a new big 3. The next big 3 were Luke and Andrew again. Andrew went from number 1 to number 1 again, but doubled his report to just shy of 700 grand. Luke, $1 million pilot summer last year, and then Rhiannon Smith, 217 in her branch that yielded 1.9 million. Okay, picked another 3 people, and then here we are back again. Luke and Andrew again. Andrew's the district now. He'll be well over $1 million in sales. Luke, another back-to-back $1 million in sales. And the 2 branches were number 1 and number 2 in our division, number 5 and number 8, respectively, in the company, came from those 2 guys and yielded about 2.4 million from just the influence from those people. So just targeting 3 people who I really enjoyed being around, I really wanted to see around, and giving that attention. And some oldie but goodies, but really recruiting like a college football recruiter. This is Grace Velez. She'll be here. I don't know how many SLCs she's been to, but you know, Grace is a words of affirmation. How do I know that? Because she's taken the love language test that everyone in our division takes. And so I wrote in a journal a couple of reasons why I thought she'd be a great DM. I had some recruiting letters, and every district and every branch who knew her wrote letters to why she'd be a great district manager. I sent her a book, How to Be CEO, and one of the chapters says, essentially sold her off of not wanting to be a lawyer because she was kind of conflicted. Sent her this box to Puerto Rico. She sent me this picture. The next day, we got a letter of intent. Like finding ways to be creative with recruiting. This is Luke, and I talk about Luke all the time, but just Luke likes to eat and drink. It's pretty straightforward, right? And of course, if he's going to work for me, he's got to make sure his clothes fit better. So we started going shopping together, and that was easy. And then this guy, Andrew, and he doesn't even look the same anymore, man. So Andrew is a tough one, right? Andrew's always the guy trying to find the new hot business and be the next multimillionaire, and I love it. And I think he needs a lot of guidance still, even with the great success that he has. So I remember, this is 3 years old, but these are conversations. If you look at the dates, I would have conversations every week as he was exploring other options and whether or not he wanted to branch a second time with us. So this was, hey, customized topics. Instead of you just going through TLA again and being bored with it, what do you want to get out of TLA? Let's customize the itinerary. Let's customize the syllabus. Number 2, follow up on conversations. He had a frat brother that knew a guy kind of conversation. Yeah, my frat brother has a business. And I already knew where that was going. So I walked through it and, you know, where are you at with that? And come to find out it wasn't going anywhere. But I was in the mix that whole time. Talking about district manager and creating opportunities for himself. At this time, he was competing with Ty from Chicago Division. So we talked about him leveraging calls. I had him reach out to the Silver Cup branch at the time and ask questions about why he would branch a second time. Getting office experience with, at that time, Colliers Cordero in Tallahassee, and then creating a vision for his production. And then that second summer, I did just shy of 400. Okay. It's pretty cool to see. And I had a conversation with his branch, our number 1 branch, Eric Palacio, said, so what did you do to recruit? What did you say to recruit Andrew to district? I said, I don't know. It's been 5 years of recruiting Andrew. From the moment he walked into my office and how I carried myself and what I said and what I didn't say and what I did for him, and the lessons we learned, that's what's recruited Andrew. It wasn't going to be any visit. It wasn't going to be any trip to the bar. It wasn't going to be a letter that was going to pull the trigger. It was going to be multiple experiences with Andrew. And so for me, the biggest thing I can say to you is be active and find the people. Every summer, as per tradition, second week of June, every summer, last 3 summers, I'll select a handful of people that will be on Jeff's kind of A-player crew, and I'll take them out, and I'll just have a big stump speech while I'm out. And Heidi comes along, and she's a great ambassador of the business, and We'll talk about what it's like to be in our business as long as Andrew, and we just have a great signature experience. And lo and behold, every year this group, and this is just the most recent 2018, this group every year deploys. Like I have 100% conversion from this picture 3 years in a row. All 6 to 8 people are always running an office at a high level with our division. And field visits, last year I went to University of Florida, Florida State University, and Indiana University to get time. I ran 2 out of the 3 preps at those locations. Yesterday I just got back from Florida State from my recruiting trip. And so I think it's worth heading to NYU in a couple of weeks to visit some of our candidates as well. But I think finding ways to be aggressive. And at the end of the day, communication and relationships, rather, are really about where you're spending your time. What are we doing with our time? And as I get older, and as I'm envious of all of you who have families already, and I'm excited to have a family soon, but I understand time is precious. So when you do have free time, where's the exposure? Where are you getting time? Where are you getting connection? This is just kind of a tidbit, but sample of the schedule I put out a few years ago, where I spend my time during the fall, between calls with the big 3, returning TLA, weekly TLA conference calls. I got this from Drew, but field visits from time to time when it's appropriate to visit offices, monthly staff meeting with a team night out, campaign CSP meetings, presence in the pilot if it's needed, running weekly TLA conference calls, and then having calls once, sometimes twice a month, right before preps with my top 30%. Just being very wary of where you spend your time. I think that's really important. Okay. So take 30 seconds, maybe perhaps some light bulbs from this portion, or some action steps, or some questions to follow up on as I think we're going bowling tonight? Yeah, I'll be available because I can't bowl, so. And I think there'll be a lot of other people here available as well, because I certainly didn't come up with the big 3, right? That's a Mike Muriel goodie. What are some things that, I heard that a few talks ago, but I never put it to use? What are the things you've put to use, but could use some buttoning up, if you will? Communication. This, in the last 2 years, when we took the 2nd division on last year, Florida Golf, when I started running 2, this was really the key for us in elevating. And I shared this with the Vector East crew a few months ago, almost a year ago. Timing is everything with the communication. And I think the more advanced I've become with being a division manager, it has to do with knowing when to send out communication as the game slows down, if you will. So as far as our systems and communication and creating culture, there are 3 parts here: themes and promotions, how we communicate, and then DVM leveraging, which is actually really fun when I show it to you. So themes and promotions. At the risk of going through every single slide here, I broke it down into, these are the big 5. This is from last year, but these are the 5 key promotions that in a division manager calendar, I've got to get these 5 themes out throughout the summer, and that's got to stick throughout the next cycle of TLA. Leadership Academy, Going Branch, CSP, the District Manager Opportunity, and why cut through college can benefit you. If I can get those 5 keys out, right? This is for skills while you're in college. These are the different opportunities to get those skills. This is our career position, or our 2 career positions, and this is making yourself more marketable to be a 5-star college graduate. If I can get those 5 themes out from the beginning of summer through SLDMs and such, I'm going to be on a good track. For me, I really bank on the SLDM. For me, it's we have 6 to 8 in the summer. We'll typically do 1 or 2, sometimes 3 in the non-summer virtually, depending on the size of the division. But, I said this to Vector East, but the SLDM for me is the new DVM demo. Right? So when I get up in front of people, that's my page 8 and 9, or that's my closing, and I have to be able to nail that all the time. So just a review, just a few slides that I'd say 80% of my divisional meetings, and if it's a divisional function, have these slides, and light bulb moments, right? Cut through college, the collegiate track, right? Why be a 5-star recruit, right? #1 company for college students, right? And then at every meeting, I try to unleash whatever hashtags I'm trying to get going on into the division. So Florida United, be a 5-star recruit, light bulb moments, cut through college, and whatever year is the next year of what we're promoting. In this case, 2019. Okay. So for us, these are the checkpoints that I have in my calendar, and these are sacred checkpoints where I know, okay, I've got to nail at summer prep. These themes have to come out hard at summer prep. Why? Because the districts and branches have to be sold and also able to communicate that down for the summer. During SLDMs, or I think some of us call those FSM development meetings. Weekly team meeting videos. You know, I'm not so active in my weekly team meetings nowadays, but I'm certainly present every week with a video. 10K Alliance meeting, the first one, the prelude to SC2. This is a big checkpoint for me to get these themes out. Of course, SC1, Summer Conference 1, and then the biggest audience we have is our 10K Alliance for SC2. If I can get those themes that I just shared with you out, these 6 key functions, in fact, and I got this from Scott a long time ago, and Albert, I know by SC1 what my development pool will look like. Right? I'll know by number 1 how many people are at SC1, and number 2, what's the buzz of all the things I'm talking about. What's the cut through college buzz? What's the branch buzz? And if it's strong, like these last 2 summers at SC1, I just sit back and smile. Like I kick off opening comments, they go to the back. I just kick my feet up and I smile because I know we're going to have a huge deployment class based on that. Okay, and essentially, it's for me to set up my SC2 management tour, where I can take everything I've been doing on a macro level and now talk one-on-one to every single candidate who I'm visiting and kind of spit this knowledge to them, if you will. So from that portion, what are some light bulbs for you? What are some immediate action steps or things to follow up on? What themes could we button up? What themes have we not gotten out there? What meetings don't have checkpoint value, as I mentioned? I know there are different versions and platforms of communication, but for us, WhatsApp has been key. In fact, bold statement here, but WhatsApp is the new Cutco.com. Yeah? Who knows Cutco.com? Like real Cutco.com. Thanks, yeah, real Cutco.com. You have 9,000 new messages from Rick Castro, right? I can, just like Rich, I can impersonate everyone's intro. Hi, this is Al the Leonardo. That was yours. I remember that. WhatsApp has been awesome because I've been able to scale my influence across the division on every single layer. So for example, Monday through Friday, I've got checkpoints and I've got templates where it takes me no longer than 30 minutes every morning. After my morning routine, I've got 30 minutes of just crafting messages. I just change names and change dates, and I just send them out. And so during the summer, like every office has templates of what to send to their team, how to kick off Monday, how to kick off Tuesday, and so forth. So that's kind of been set in stone for the division. Monday through Friday, we also do what's called Big 3. So I'll have all of our managers, branches, and districts send me a daily Monday through Friday. What are your big focus points for the day? What are you trying to get done? And it's got to be in 20 seconds. If it's over 20 seconds, I just respond too long and I don't respond. And if it's, and then what I'll do is I'll spend about 20, 30 minutes responding to every single manager. So instead of running a conference call every day, I know some of you like to do a live call. Live conference calls drive me crazy, because people are always late or they're driving, for me, it's more time efficient if I got all these big 3s, or by 7 o'clock or 7:30, and whoever doesn't get it to me by 7:30, I don't respond. If it's over 20 seconds, I don't respond. So from 7:30 to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday, I'm able to give a one-on-one 30-second to a minute response to every manager in my division during goal period. And that way I'm giving guidance, and it's so funny to hear what my big focus for today is I really want to make sure I get my office set up. It's like 2 weeks into goal period. I really want to make sure I get my office looking nice, and I can change on the spot. I know what's going on. Okay. So that's been really helpful with the DVM thoughts. A couple of other really helpful features. Starring messages and links. So it's really cool. Our returning TLA WhatsApp group right now has 2 years of starred links and just a library of best practices, like different conference calls we've run. The second year we've done it, this has been the highest production at minimal effort for me this fall, because all I've been doing is just taking last year's templates and stars and links and taking them and sending them out. It's been pretty cool. It's awesome to post videos. I remember Brett, a couple Vector East meetings ago, was profiling some of his videos, and I took a lot from that. So I just started sending these videos, and I'm not that Instagram follow me guy at all. I'm not the Ty Lopez and spit knowledge. Yours are killer, man. Holy, I'll talk to you later. Like I'm not on that level like Nick, but I really like sending videos because it gives kind of a live feed, and I can give some influence every day. I love sharing the hot news. What's been really cool, every week I send up startup totals, letter of intents that have been submitted, and sales for the week, every week for TLA. So we've got this really big sales culture going on and competitive culture. I found that most of the generation now, for me, aren't checking email, or it's hard to get them to check email. So when I send an email, I just send a WhatsApp, hey, email sent, check it out. So it's directing them to email when they need to be. And I've been using WhatsApp to collect stats for about 3 years, and it's been pretty simple. Day one, training results, there's certain stats that I want, that Scott wants, that I want, and they're posted, and they know every single day. I'll unleash that at a summer kickoff of what stats I want daily, and it's pretty easy to collect everything. And also light bulbs. One of the things I love is with Luke in the pilot, every time we had a best practice come up or something that was hot in the pilot, we could get the word out that day within an hour and share programs immediately. So there was immediate implementation. So big fan of WhatsApp. And of course, interaction, right? So these were some examples from last non-summer. But so, posting some results like personal recruiting numbers for the week. And then recognizing people who hit the minimum and people who haven't hit it yet that need to get on it. Okay? And I know there are other platforms, but this one has worked really well for us. Here, office search and reminding people of deadlines. So you can take pictures and draw, and it's like Snapchat. Okay? Hey, just sent an email out, and I clarify what the email is, and I let them know, because I know they're not on email, so I'll direct them to the email when something's sent out. Conference call. Every week we do have a district manager conference call. I send the agenda, a picture of the agenda, let them know we're up on the call. Zoom link, ready to rock and roll. 5 minutes before roll call. Pretty straightforward. Active advertising updates. When everyone hits the campus, they post a picture of them on the campus, and I can send. This is an example of a daily template that's pretty much copy and paste and sent out after certain events. When we go to region conference and Scott's speaking about, let's say, recruiting, Karina can take a picture and say, hey, this is really important. So there's a lot of interaction going on during the talks and messages. They're on their phones anyway. That's what I found. They're on their phones anyway, and I don't like to police people. That's not my style. So if they're going to be on their phones anyway, why not create a platform where they're going to interact with each other? So that's been really big for us. And I just love that I can keep tabs on performance, right? A positive outcome is blank for your recruiting. A positive outcome is blank for how many you signed for the day. And I can just recognize all the people that are getting it done quickly, and it takes no time at all with WhatsApp. Okay? This is an example of getting on campus and people setting their personal recruiting numbers. Okay? And then this is an example of teaching from the pilot. So in the pilot, one of our best practices 2 summers ago was a weekly staff meeting. And this was the board that we had of everything we went through during our weekly staff meeting. So that Tuesday, I took a picture, and I was able to instruct everyone through the pictures, and I got it out within 24 hours. And it became a big best practice for us. Okay? I love sending this picture. So when someone does something really well in our division, or if they're getting on my radar, I'll send out, hey, John, nice sales week. And I'll just send them, hey, get on my radar. Get into TLA. Okay? And it's been awesome for training the new PSM, because then they're starting the quantums, and I'll just say, hey, Giovanni, he's the new PSM. Giovanni, pull up the quantum. They don't have to go to their computer. They just pull it right on their phone. So they have all the documents they need. We can have interactions, exchanges, and intelligent conversation pretty quickly. So this has been probably my favorite slide of the year, get on my radar. And this group is, it changes, right? So this group, from April until the 10K Alliance meeting for SC2, we don't have a group. There's no WhatsApp group. At SC2, we create the SC2 Gunner group, which is all the candidates who are pushing for SC2. Then after SC2, it's the TLA candidate group. So these are the people who are trying to impress and get into TLA. And then once we accept people for TLA, this is the 2018 or 2019 class of TLA. And so I have like 3 years of groups saved. So I'll stop there. Any light bulbs or action steps on WhatsApp or mass communication? I encourage you to write that down for a second. Last two thoughts, pilot power. For me, it's just pretty straightforward. It's just time and energy and where you're spending it. And I believe this was Drew from last year, but just thinking about, where you're at. Situation is the boss, as Adam Stock often says. Is your business, is your division or your office in its infancy stage? So I'm spending most of my time in the pilot and not as much with the division. I've got to get the pilot going. Is it adolescence where you can step away from the pilot a little bit? I mean, right now, I feel great because right now I don't have to be in the pilot as much. But what I will say, and this is directly from Drew, there are a good 6 to 8 weeks where I know that no one's going to get the higher results or the best results better than me, and I'm in my pilot. I think sometimes people are shocked. They say, how many trainings do you run? And I know this is not gospel, but they ask me how many trainings I run, and I catch them, and I talk about this all the time. If you want to make a lot of wealth and build a lot of power in the division, you capitalize on your goal period, and you're of high influence, and you bring high volume, and you bring a lot of new business. And May and June, these last 2 Mays and Junes, have been extremely profitable, have been extremely exciting, have been flush with development, and are very present in the pilot for at least those anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks at a time. Part of that, too, is that, well, this is Luke, and he's the party now. Part of it is that we've been really buttoned up on our pilot sales manager training and recruiting plan. Like, I already know who the pilot sales manager will be, no later than November, but already now for next year, okay? And more importantly, there's a plan. So I can certainly share this document again. But starting in September, whatever version of summer planning you might have had, let's say on the cusp of summer. So for us, we had what's called a summer CAP, campaign attack plan. And we would do it in like March. What we just did is we just took it into 8 different parts and spread it out from September until March instead of trying to rush everything. So I just spent it's usually about 4 or 5 hours once a month live and an hour call. So my PSM for next summer, I'm getting a weekly call for 30 to 45 minutes every week. And once a month, we have a live 4 or 5 hour either virtual session or I go to him or he'll come to me. And for me, that's been really important because I've gotten a lot done with Luke in the last 2 years. And it's really cool to see just putting this new guy. Remember the name, Giovanni Pastrana, okay? Super Cuban guys from the pilot under Luke, stud. And we're just putting him into Luke's place, and it's the same thing, and it's awesome, and the system's working. So this is an example here. And then last but not least is personal and professional growth. Here's what I do know. The times where I haven't been so growth-oriented, where I haven't worked on myself and tried to be the best me, it showed in the division. And in these last few years, I can say genuinely that it's just been an exciting time in my life outside the business. So I think it therefore reflects into the business. But that's not always the case. I know life is crazy. Life is hard. So what I would encourage you to do is just find out, where you're at. And I was reading listening to this great podcast the other day. And, those are 2 very important words because what comes right after is going to be really important in terms of what you feed to your people. It's really exciting for me to feed my people and say, hey, I'm getting married, and Heidi and I, we have a quarterly review every 3 or 4 months, and we sit down, we talk about finances, and I teach that, and to the guys, that's the biggest thing ever. And things that we're doing as a couple, or things that I'm doing in my personal life, or things that I'm doing in the business life, in the books that we're reading, and are we leveling up our game? And so that's really more of an encouragement to our DVM team. How focused can you be on where you're at, because it's just going to show down to all your people. So here's what I'd like you to do. Take the next 30 seconds of all the things we just covered. Let's summarize your final action steps and light bulbs for this delicious recipe. So we'll end where we began, right, with rhythms. And so from my message today, I hope that you're able to pull not just some nuggets, but some ways to put it all together. And I think that's the key, right? This has been the 3rd or 4th year in a row I've talked about divisional culture and development, and it all just builds upon each other. So no matter what step you're at right now and where your organization is at, I'm really confident in a lot of these systems and what they can do for you and your organization and really the future. So let's have a great SLC. I'm excited to get time with you and bowl some strikes tonight. So thanks, guys.